Hi. So we are trying out Facebook Live. A few technology difficulties here, but we are live with Elizabeth Stephenson from New Direction Family Law. I'm going to kind of pop this a little bit. We haven't quite figured out the camera, but we're getting there. Need a tripod. Anyway, so as I mentioned, this is Elizabeth from New Direction Family Law. And they are located right on Jones Street in downtown Raleigh in the Glenwood South District. Very easy to find. So, Elizabeth, first of all, why don't you tell me a little bit about the practice and what you specialize in?
Sure. We are New Direction Family Law, and we chose that name because we believe with change comes empowerment, that lots of people go through separation and divorce, and we want to surround someone going through that difficult situation with trusted partners. We hope that we help people move from bitter to better and from victim to victorious so that they can have the life they want for their children and themselves.
That's great. And so we do actually have a few questions that we both came up with. I'm going to try and pop this. Our heads might... Yeah, we can get in the shot there a little bit. So I have a few questions that we kind of came up with as the blog, and also we had a few readers write in and ask some questions as well. Okay. So the first one is one that we kind of came up with is, do judges usually favor for the mother? So we're a mom's blog, obviously. Lots of moms watching today, if they're possibly thinking about a separation or concerned about their custody arrangement. Right. Can you fill us in a little bit more on how that goes?
Back in the day, it used to be that way, but now our judges, especially in Lake County, start with the premise of joint custody. They believe that what's best for the children is to be jointly residing with both parents if that's what's safe and that's what's in their best interest. So we really start with the 50-50, and that can be however parents want to make that arrangement. It can be like a 5-2-2, which we call with mom Monday, Tuesday, dad Wednesday, Thursday, and then alternate every other weekend in the holidays. But there are some times when, especially if children are very young, that if mom has been the primary caretaker, then developmentally we know that shorter visits more frequently are better in the beginning. So it's going to be a lifelong process, and it's a learning about what your child is like. Are they good with transitions? Are they not good with transitions? What's discipline like in the household? So there are lots of considerations that go into that.
And do you think that the judge or the attorney sort of look at each situation individually? So if it is a really young child, for example, that may still be breastfeeding or something, those are certainly considerations that would need to be taken in.
Yeah, because of what we call the polar star, and what the judges do is what's in the best interest of that child, not what's in the best interest of the parents. So they're looking really at what's in the best for the child.
Right. Now, what is the difference between primary and physical custody?
Well, there are two types of custody.
Or physical and legal, I guess, yeah.
Physical custody is who does the child or children actually, where are they physically? Are they at mom's house or are they at dad's house? Legal custody is who gets to make the big decisions. Who's the doctor? When are they going to learn to drive? What school are they going to go to? Those sorts of things. And again, our judges start with the premise of joint, that the best for the child is if parents can make those decisions together. But we all know in reality that doesn't always happen. So a lot of times it's, well, you guys need to talk together, but we're going to give one parent the option to make the decision if you can't agree.
Makes sense. So regarding then primary and legal custody, what if one parent, like let's say dad wants to change the school because he's moved and the commute's getting a little rough for where he is for pick up and drop off? How are those decisions made?
Well, you have to remember there are two different things. If you have a separation agreement that has custody provisions in it, that's not a court order. That's just like a contract between you and the other parent. You go before a judge, ask for them to modify that order to get that changed. So it's not, you can't just unilaterally make the decision.
Makes sense. Now, what happens if I am remarried and have another baby? How does that kind of take effect with my current custody situation and siblings, and how it might, I guess, affect any arrangement that I might have with that partner.
Right, and it's not legally necessarily, but the change of court order, you've got to have a substantial change in circumstance, and that could be a substantial change in circumstance. And so the judge would look at what's in the best interest of the child again. There are enough bedrooms, do the siblings get along? They want to promote that new relationship with that new sibling. Now that may be causing issues on the other side, where there's a new baby involved. But I'll tell you, if you go to our website, I just wrote an article on that about how to do what happens when you have a new baby and how to work those things out.
Oh, okay. And do you blog often?
We do. We try to, at least once or twice a week. I just finished doing one. I'm a single mom. And it's about how to reduce the stress in your life. And it's easy to say, but there are lots of great tips on our blog. And we put out a newsletter every month, too, that has those in there.
I know that we have a contributor who's a single mother, and that's been one of her biggest challenges, is just juggling all of the time and activities and getting everywhere they need to be.
Right.
Plus working and all of that too. Now, what if, let's say I'm remarried, or maybe I'm not remarried, but I have a job offer in another state. How does that work? If our arrangement is here in North Carolina and I want to move out of state, what's the next step there?
There are a lot of options. The best option I tell clients is that you really need to come and ask a judge for permission to move. Can you pick up and take your child out of state? You can, but the other parent can then get an emergency custody order to bring them back, and then you've got just a mess, and you've got a child involved in all of that. So there are certain factors that you need to show the judge that it's in the best interest of the child. Why are you moving? Is it for a better job so that you can support more? Do you have family support? Those sorts of things. And is there a way to make a visitation schedule that works for the other parent? Now, a lot of times the judges will say, you're welcome to move, but the child's going to stay here. And so it's really, especially if they've been to school here, they have friends here, their doctors are here, all of that. It's a really high bar to go over, but it doesn't mean that it can't happen.
Now, can I set up a custody schedule without going to court? Or, do you find that some parents, obviously, again, this is a case-by-case basis,
right,
I'm sure. But do a lot of people set up their own custody schedule without getting the courts involved? And would you recommend that?
Oh, absolutely. Anything you can do to avoid court is the best thing that you can do, because once you walk in a courtroom, you have no control. I have no control. You have no control. The only person that controls anything is the person in the robe sitting on the bench. And they hear your case for maybe an hour or two, and they're going to make a decision about where your child's going to live. So anything you can do to work out with the other partner or parent is the best. You can have a separation agreement or a parenting agreement that you sign, the other parent signs, and it's notarized. Or you can enter into a consent order where both of you sign it, the judge signs it, but nobody goes to court because you've agreed on the terms. Now, the thing to remember about a separation agreement or a parenting agreement is that it's not enforced. Law enforcement's not going to help you enforce it because there's no court order. So a lot of times with custody, it's almost better and more reassuring to a lot of parents to have that consent order, so in the event something would happen, it can be enforced.
That makes sense. Now, we have a lot of transplants in this state, so what happens, let's say somebody has started a separation process or already has a separation order in place in a different state, and then they move to North Carolina. What changes there for them? Even, if, let's say, even mom and dad have decided to both move to North Carolina, are there legal ramifications to doing that?
I wouldn't say the ramifications, but if you have a separation agreement or parenting agreement, nothing changes. It follows you from state to state. But if you have a court order, then you need to register it in North Carolina so it can be enforced. And then once you're here 6 months, you can ask the other state to release jurisdiction so that North Carolina now has jurisdiction and can enforce or modify that order. Big thing to remember about getting separated is separating just gets you separated. It doesn't take care of the custody or the property division, child support, or alimony. So those are all issues that are separate from, say, a year and a day we have to wait in North Carolina to get divorced. All the issues surrounding custody, child support, alimony, and property can be dealt with before then so that you can move on with your life.
Now, actually, let's go back to that for a second.
Okay.
So a year and a day before you can get divorced, what does that mean?
It means that you can't be living in 2 separate bedrooms. You've got to be in 2 separate residences for separation to start. A lot of people come to me and say, I want separation papers. You don't have to have papers to get separated in North Carolina. Once one person, let's say my husband wants to separate, but I don't, doesn't matter. Just so one person wants to remain separate and apart, the day that you walk out of the house is the day the year and a day starts to tick. And so a year and a day, you can file a complaint and ask the court for a divorce. And all that does is let you remarry. Doesn't do anything else with any other issues that have to do with your children or your finances or your property.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's a long way. The other states have different ones, but ours is a year and a day.
A year and a day. That day is important.
It is.
Now, let's see. I think we had a couple other questions. Let's see what.
I'll tell you what people ask me a lot is, what's a normal custody schedule? And I always say there isn't one because you know your children best. What works for me, and I'm on a 5-2-2 with my John Thorne's dad, but that may not work for your children. So when people come to see me, I tell them to really think about what they want to do and what they think is best for their child, and think about holidays.
Right.
You know, what's important to you. Sometimes Christmas or, you know, that isn't important to people, but Thanksgiving or July 4th really is. So, you know, it's not what I think you should do, but you really need to sit down and think, how's this going to work over the next 18 years also, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, you know, it's a long decision, but it doesn't mean it can't be modified at some point.
Well, and then I would assume as the kids get older too, and sports happen or drama club, you know, cheerleading, things like that, that they have those after school commitments, and I think that makes things a little more complicated.
It does, and then you start having, when you get to middle school, you start having the homework, and you know, it's hard on kids because they have to pack this big backpack that has all their stuff in it and take it from house to house.
Right.
So just taking that in consideration sometimes is really important.
And what's the least stressful thing for the child on the holidays too? I think that's something probably, unfortunately, not everyone considers, but you know, do they want to do Christmas in the one house versus the other?
Right.
So.
And do you have are you traveling so that if you have Christmas Day, well, you really can't go see your family. So a lot of times what county judges will do is, especially if you're on a traditional schedule, let's say, that they'll do it in halves, like from the day school's released until December 27th. And then from December 27th till school goes back in. And then it flip-flops the next year. So every other year you have you'll have the Christmas Eve or the Christmas Day, but you still get a long period, you know, with them.
Now, let's say you're remarried. Can your new spouse legally adopt your child that you have with somebody else?
You can, if termination of parental rights for the biological father happens, and there's a big standard about that because the state wants somebody to be financially responsible for that child. So biological dad can't just consent to give away his rights. You've got to show that he hasn't been in the child's life, hasn't supported them financially, that sort of thing. Or biological dad could consent, and then it's a step-parent adoption. So it's just a matter of filing the right forms and going before the judge and making sure that it's in the best interest of the child.
Now, what are the options when people are going through a divorce proceeding? Do you recommend things like mediation, or what are sort of the available choices to people when they start going through this process?
Right. We call it alternative dispute resolution. And actually, if you would file in any county in North Carolina, if you file a complaint which starts a lawsuit asking the court to do something for you, and you do it for custody or you do it for property division, you are mandated to go to mediation because they want you to work it out.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so when you go, everything can be on the table. And so, again, what we say about mediation is, if it's a good mediation, if everybody leaves equally unhappy, because you've got to compromise to come to a decision. And some people can, 99% of the people can do that, but there's a small percentage that really can't, and that's where the judges can be helpful and help them work out those issues.
And literally, what does that process look like? Like, how, sitting in a room with somebody?
You sit in a room, usually it's in separate rooms. And then the mediator, who is generally, I always like to use a family law specialist who's been trained as a mediator. And the mediator moves back and forth between the offices. And They sit and listen. They really do. I mean, this can be an all-day process, and I've seen it go through the middle of the night. But as long as you're making progress, you want to stay there. So you start with an offer, and then they talk and they say, I'll agree to this, but I don't agree to that. And then you start a dialogue to see where you can reach compromise and where you can't. So it's hard work on both sides, but in the end, if you can reach that agreement between yourselves, one, you feel like you have some control and ownership of it, and two, it's done. You get to walk out and it's done.
Yeah, it saves a little extra
Yeah,
time in the long
saves
run.
time,
Yeah,
believe me, it saves time and money.
yeah,
Yeah.
and probably a little stress when all is said
Absolutely.
and done if everybody can
Absolutely.
get on the same page early on.
Right. And you've got to decide, it's not always a financial issue, but it's about what's important to you, your health, your mental health, your stress level. Going to court is a full-time job. And so you've got to balance that out. If I give up a little bit, what am I going to gain in that respect?
Sure.